Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Qur'anic Contemplations, where we're going to be looking at some verses from the 25th juz of the Quran and reflecting on them. The first verse we're going to be looking at is in Surah Shura, verse number 28, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about the blessings that He has given us. From them is the sending down of the rain after the believers have despaired, and then He spreads His mercy, He sends down His mercy through the rain. And at the end of the verse, He says, وَهُوَ الْوَلِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ, and He is the protector, the praiseworthy. So, normally in the Quran, especially the verses we come across, there are certain names that He uses quite regularly, quite often. For example, Ghafur Rahim, Azizun Hakim, Tawabun Hakim, etc. Al-Wali al-Hamid isn't common at all in the Quran. And so the question arises, why these specific names of Allah? Why are these names of Allah mentioned after this verse? And from the wisdoms and from the things we can reflect on and benefit from with regards to this, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse, He is talking about the blessings that He has sent down for the people. And these blessings are blessings such as the rain that is discussing in this ayah, which benefit human beings. Not only do they benefit human beings, they are a source of protection, meaning the rain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down preserves humankind. If there was no rain coming down, people would end up dying because people need rain for sustenance. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the quality and the name Al-Wali, the protector. How does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us? By providing for us. And from the greatest things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for His slaves is the rain that He sends down from the heavens. So this is why Allah mentions Al-Wali. He mentions the name Al-Wali. And then Al-Hamid, the praiseworthy, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to those who praise Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses and sends His mercy upon those who praise Him. And this is why, of course, when we are in need of rain, we have Salatul Istisqa, the rain prayer. And of course, we're praying to Allah, we're praising and glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking His forgiveness. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a result, will send down His rain. And so when we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's one of the ways in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spreads His mercy and rewards us and benefits us from the provisions which He provides for us. The second verse we're going to look at is in Surah Zukhruf, verse number 27, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And He's denying the idol worship of His people. And so He says, إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي فَإِنَّهُ سَيَهْدِينِ, except for He who created me, and indeed He will guide me. Now it's interesting how when Allah Azza wa Jal talks about this statement of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ibrahim doesn't say إِلَّا Allah, except for Allah He will guide me. He says, except for He who created me. Now why does Ibrahim alayhi salam specifically mention this quality of Allah creating him to describe Allah? Meaning He could have said, إِلَّا Allah, except for Allah, He will guide me. إِلَّا Allah فَإِنَّهُ سَيَهْدِينِ, except for Allah, verily He will guide me. Or for example, Rabbi, my Lord. Why specifically does He say إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي, except for He who created me? We could take from this two reasons or two points of benefit, and of course there could be many, many more. From them, from the benefits that we could take, is that Ibrahim alayhi salam mentions the act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating him when he describes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Firstly, because He's singling out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it is only Allah Azza wa Jal who has the capabilities and the ability to create humankind, and He is the one who is the creator of everything. So the first reason is because He wants to acknowledge that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who has created him, and that's why he's worshipping Allah, and that's why he doesn't worship anything else. So he's mentioning the reason why he's turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is because he is the one who has created me. The second reason is to denounce the belief of the idol worshippers, because the idol worshippers, of course, worship idols. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam is essentially saying, I am worshipping the one who created me. You can't say the same for what you're worshipping, because what you're worshipping didn't create you. In fact, you created them. You created your own idols. So in essence, you're worshipping something you created. I am worshipping an entity which created me. Except for he who created me. And again, this shows us the beauty and the wisdom in which the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would supplicate, and they would call others to Islam. The third verse we're going to be looking at is in Surah Al-Quran, verse number 29, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about those who committed sins, and he says, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُنظَرِينَ, that the heavens and the earth didn't weep or cry for them, nor were they reprieved, nor were they missed. And Allah explicitly talks about the heavens and the earth crying for those who committed sins, or in this case, not crying for those who committed sins and those who were sinners. Now, why specifically the heavens and the earth? Why not, for example, the people? The people didn't cry for those who committed sins. It's possible you could say because there were some who had followers from people who did miss people who died who weren't Muslim, and they were wept for. What about the other elements of the creation? Why specifically the earth and the heavens? What is that? What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? One of the wisdoms and one of the benefits we can take from this, and a point to contemplate over, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings on this earth, and the earth will be a witness to everything that the human beings did on the day of judgment. And so on the day of judgment, the earth will witness and be either a testification for or against the person. Now, the one who committed sins, the earth won't weep for that person, because the earth witnessed this individual committing sins on earth, and so he won't be missed. Likewise, this individual who committed sins, he didn't have good deeds raising up into the heavens to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so even the heavens didn't weep for this individual, just as the earth didn't weep for this individual, because he didn't have good deeds that were being raised up towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ, that the heavens and the earth didn't weep for him. The earth didn't witness and didn't observe this person committing or doing good deeds, only committing sins, and so he wasn't missed by the earth. The earth never wept for him when he died. And likewise, the heavens never witnessed and saw good deeds going up from this person towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so the earth or the heavens never wept for this individual either. Jazakumullah khair for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.